Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. First and foremost, I want to say that I am guilty, accountable, and responsible for my actions of murder on April 28th, 1992. The murder of Polly, Danny, and Amy Seguin, my wife, and our beautiful children. And I understand that the damage that I've done is unrepairable. It's never going to change what I've done. There will always be a void. I could never make up for my crime. It's unfixable. It's permanent. And it's far-reaching. It's an affront to the Coxes, McKays, Seguins, Fredette families. It's an affront to the community of Holliston. It's an affront to our friends, family. And I'm responsible. I'm accountable. I've been remorseful since 1992 for my actions. I ended the life of three beautiful people, Polly, Danny, and Amy. Polly was just 34 years old, a young, beautiful woman that I knew for 15 years. Our children, Danny was only 7 years old. Amy was only 5 years old. And they were extraordinary people. They were needlessly ripped from this world because of the way I felt. I was too proud to tell people I needed help. I was too proud to reveal my perceptions, which were not lining up with reality. I was cowardly to not honestly seek that help, thinking I had some kind of image to hold up. I was cowardly not to talk about my perceived problems. And I grieve it. I'm truly and fully responsible for it. There's no excuses, and I stand guilty. And I understand the long-lasting effects. I understand that it's long-reaching. I know the hurt and the confusion that I've caused. I know the void that I left from my offense. Polly was somebody who was community-oriented before I met her, back at Reading High. And when I met her in college, she was community-oriented. She was part of the student council at North Adams State College where we met. She was a resident assistant. And when she went to work, she was community-oriented and civically involved, working for the GAO, and did a lot of work on veteran affairs. And, you know, it wasn't just the work that she cared about those veterans, the men that she saw in the veteran hospitals. She was a caring, young, beautiful woman. In Holliston, she cared about the elderly. She would take Danny and Amy to the nursing home on a weekly basis, playing bingo, offering fruit for prizes. She did it of her own free will. Nobody asked her to do it. I took that goodwill away from the world. She had so much more to offer. And I cut that short. And I'm responsible for that. I'm remorseful for that. I think of that all the time, every day. My 16 years with her were a blessing. And I took that away. Danny and Amy, they were our pride and joy. They were loving. They were empathic. They were happy. They were healthy young children. And I took their lives. And I affected so many people, kids in their class. I know the good grief counseling had to come in and deal with those children. I know some children had to ask their fathers if they would kill them. No father should have to answer that question. I caused that lack of trust. I caused that questioning that no one should have for a parent. I disgraced the title of parent. You know, kids that were in class with Danny, he was in the 2nd grade. When they graduated high school, they dedicated a page of their yearbook to him 10 years later. You know, it's evidence of that void, of that grief. One of the kids wrote that it was a shame the world will never be able to see what you had to offer. And I'm responsible for that. I took that away. And what's true of Danny is true of Amy. Polly and Danny and Amy had so much more to offer. And I'm responsible for stopping that. I'm responsible for that loss, for that hurt, for that confusion, for that trauma that's affected so many, for the grief that still lasts today. Its effect goes on, and I'm responsible. I can't take it away. There's nothing I can do. And I think of that all the time. I think of that when I see commercials on TV with families. I cry in myself, thinking of what I caused so many others. And I'm particularly remorseful for the voids in the family gatherings. We used to love going to 4th of July at Patricia and Warren's. And the extended family of Polly's family was there. And I know Nancy and Ellen spoke of that void that lasted afterwards, going to those events and not having Polly, Danny, and Amy there. It should be a joyful time when families come together, and them not being there, that pain that lasts to this day. Thanksgiving and Christmas Day meals at Polly's mom and dad's house. And that void that was left. I caused that. I'm responsible for that. Christmas Eve with the Seguins and Fredettes, extended family. Them not being there. I caused that. Birthdays that should have been. Weddings that should have been. Graduations that should have been. I'm sorry for that. I grieve the trust issues that I caused. Nancy spoke of it a couple of hearings back. And I think of that constantly. How it's affected relationships, all relationships. Someone that was once trusted, breaking that trust in the way that I broke it. And that trauma continues to trigger trust issues. I acknowledge that. I'm responsible for that. I'm responsible for the inability to reconcile that I was the loving family man and that I am the murderer. Those are things that can't be reconciled. I'm responsible for that. But I want to say I know I'm responsible for my unwilling to process what my perceptions were, what my emotions were in the past, what my feelings were. I'm responsible for thinking I could sweep things under the rug when I was troubled. Just move on from it. Leaving them unprocessed, leaving them repressed or suppressed until I no longer could do so. Polly was available. She was empathetic. I had her to talk to. I had her to open up to, and I didn't. Pride of life on my part. Some kind of image I thought I had to uphold. I was a coward to not face life head on. And none of that explains, none of that justifies how I could come to a point to kill the very individuals I loved most in life. None of it. I'll never have an adequate explanation. For 33 years, I've asked myself, how could I? How could I? And I've done a lot of soul searching in those 33 years. But I'm still left with the question, how could I? I can tell you this, today, I speak my truths. Not just the good, but the bad and the ugly too. I talk to people about my perceptions. I build a support group that I can open up to, who are honest with me. And it is the truth. Yes, I loved Polly, Dan, and Amy. Yes, I am the murderer of Polly, Danny, and Amy. And I can never adequately explain that. But I will always take responsibility. I will always be remorseful. But I can never change the horrible past of the crime that I am guilty for, of my actions of killing my own family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seguin.